So I will be reading The Unicorn in the Lake by Marianna Mayer. Pictures by Michael Hagu. Once long ago, all animals lived in harmony. There was no strife among them, and they were able to speak together in a common language. At that time, mysterious and wonderful events took place, and the noble unicorn dwelled with the other animals in the lower lands. That's the unicorn. The unicorn was pure white as mountain snow, and his ivory horn was a magnificent spiral. Men believed the unicorn was immortal. They hunted him relentlessly, for it was said that his horn possessed magical powers. At last the unicorn was forced to flee high up into the mountains to escape the hunter's arrows. They try to find him. His vanishing caused magic to pass from the land. Soon all living things forgot the unicorn, and animals lost the power to speak to others unlike themselves. Therefore the birds spoke only to birds, the rabbit only to rabbits, the rats only to rats, and so it was throughout the animal kingdom. During this time of forgetfulness, many kinds of animals lived along the banks of a large lake. Though they could not speak together, the lake was vital to them, and they willingly shared it. Their only enemy was the serpent. He preyed upon them mercilessly, causing a shadow over their lives. See, he's hiding in the tree, and he's making their lives miserable. The lion, the leopard, and the stag fought the serpent boldly. Other animals lacked strength, defended themselves with cunning. The peasant distracted the serpent with his brilliant feathers to give his family time to flee. The partridge covered her eggs with dust and laid sharp, thorny shrubs over her nest to hide it. The weasel used her keen eyes to watch for the serpent, and the birds changed their sweet songs to cries of alarm to warn of the serpent's approach. See, he's trying to get the bird, and they're trying to hide the eggs. But in time of greater danger, a sadness came to the forest. For months there had been no rain. Slowly the lake began to recede, and the banks turned muddy. The animals struggled vainly to reach the shallow water. Many were so weak from thirst that they could no longer fight off the serpent when he attacked. Still no rain came. The fish were dying without water. They gasped desperately, then finally lay still and lifeless beneath the burning sun. The heron, the duck, the water rat, and other animals who fed on the water life began to hunt in vain for other food to eat. But the venomous serpent was glad of the others' trouble. All the better for me, he thought wickedly. Now I will not have to hunt so hard for my food. He's gonna try and attack the monkey. The valley too became too dry without water, and a drought fell over all the forest. The clinging green foliage that had once covered the forest floor died, and the ground cracked under the feet of the animals. Leaves from tall black walnut, beech, and oak trees turned brittle and dropped to the dusty earth. The animals grew more desperate as each day passed. They knew that without rain to fill the lake, they would surely die. Night after night, the frog, who had lost his watery home, croaked mournfully for rain, but none came. He's upset that he lost his home, so he's crying for help. At last, leaving their natural differences aside, all the animals came together to call to the rain clouds. Ignoring the scornful serpent, they looked up at the pale moon and almost cloudless sky and called for rain to bring life back to their lake and forest. All the animals are crying. High up in the mountains, the hoary marmot, who called himself the Whistler, sat at his patrol watching for enemies. As he faced the shifting wind to catch unfamiliar sounds, he heard the animals' voices and set out a shrill cry for help, shrill cry of warning. All the mountain animals, large and small, were alerted. Among them was one who lived in secret deep within the mountain caverns. Many years had passed since he had been seen, and his magical horn had been forgotten. He, of course, was the unicorn. Hearing the Whistler's warning call, he left his den and leaped swiftly from mountaintop to mountaintop until he stood among the highest pinnacle. Far below, the unicorn saw the animals, and he understood their distress. Rearing up his powerful body, he pierced the clouds with his sharp horn. Once, twice, 3 times he struck the clouds. Suddenly, lightning flashed, and rain began to fall upon the land. He's piercing the clouds with his horn to make the rain come. It rained that night and all the next day. Rain fell on the animals, and they rejoiced. The nooks and crannies of the mountains were collected the rain and sent streams of fresh water flowing into the lake. The serpent looked on angrily and plotted against the animals while they drank and bathed playfully in the lake. Late that night, while some slept and others were busy with their nocturnal duties, he plunged into the lake and spat his deadly venom throughout the water. The next morning, as the nightingale sang, the animals came to the lake, but the water was dark and foul-looking, and none would dare to drink it. He's putting all of his poison into the lake. Again the animals cried out in anguish, and hearing them, the Whistler repeated his warning. At the sound, the unicorn left his cave. Far below, he could see the poisoned water, and the animals huddled together forlornly. Slowly, majestically, he began to descend the mountain. As he came among them, the animals at the lake stopped their shrieking and were silent. Some wept openly at his beauty. Others were shy and cast down their eyes. The serpent, coldly luminous, lay watching nearby. He alone held the ancient memory of evil, and it had given him mastery over the others. But now he felt his power ebbing away. Anger filled him, and he grew to enormous size. Suddenly he coiled and struck the unicorn from behind like a whip. He's hiding in there, and the unicorn's going down to help the animals. He got big, and now he's attacking the unicorn. So that he can't help the animals down below. Fear gripped the animals as they watched the battle. The serpent wound himself like steel bands around about the unicorn's hind legs. A fierce war cry came from the unicorn as he struggled to free him. His nostrils flared, and he reared up with his forelegs, thrashing. Sharp cloven hooves came crashing down upon the serpent, whose strong hold began to weaken. The unicorn was gigantic in his mighty splendor. His spirit was ruthless, and his mane flowed like wind-swept flames. Over and over he screamed and struck until the viper was overwhelmed and powerless. Whirling around, the unicorn drew back and faced his enemy. Then his blue eyes caught the serpent, and the evil one felt shame pierce his cold heart for the first time. He slithered away in fear, knowing that one of his kind would have never spared his life. So he won the battle, and he began small, and then he slithered away. The unicorn spared the serpent's life. Finally, the unicorn came toward the lake, bent his proud head down, and plunged his horn into the water. Instantly, the lake gleamed pure, and all the animals began to drink. So he put his horn into the dirty water, and then the horn absorbed all of the poison, and then this was after it became very clear, and the animals started to drink it. The unicorn gazed lovely at each one, but his work was done, and he knew he could not live among them in the lower lands. Slowly he began to ascend the mountain. Where his hooves touched the ground, ancient flowers bloomed once more. As he walked, a little magic passed over the animals, so they were able to talk again to each other as they had once long ago. When the unicorn reached the mountain top, the animals saw his distant silhouette, etched clearly against the warming sun. So he went back up the mountain, and then he spread his magic, and now the animals can talk to each other. For example, the zebra can talk to the rabbits, and the rabbits can talk to the birds. The time of forgetfulness passed. The unicorn was remembered. Springtime spread through the forest again. Everywhere leaves unfurled, fern fronds opened, and birds built nests. Masses of flowers appeared, so that the forest floor shone with color, and the forest resounded with joy. Warm breezes carried the scent of rich, moist soil, and dark green moss grew once more on the banks of the beautiful lake. The end.